Hey guys, this is May, and this is clip number 7 from a series of 9 from my webinar, The Second Wave, It's Not Over Yet. Now, clip 7 here brings us to China. And I know China is of great interest to a lot of people because after all, we're talking about the rising dragon of the East. But 2021 was a bit of a difficult year for China as they went into a bit of an energy crisis. If you've been following the headlines, some of the coal shortages have led to various other difficulties in their production schedules, especially with a lot of big names like Nike, Apple, Tesla, all these big companies that have their production being affected by shortages in China. So we're going to look at that, and also to answer the question, do people think that these obstacles are going to stop China from being the rising dragon in the East?
If you've been following economic news, China ran into an energy crisis this year. And it says they need more coal to avert the crisis. Some of you know the story between them and Australia. Go do your own research, right? But the important thing is that when the energy crisis happened, it meant that China underwent multiple rounds of blackouts and a lot of factories were down. Production was down. So now for an average person, don't care which country you're from, just so you know, everything is made in China, yeah? So that when you have some shipments will definitely be delayed. Think about the implications of that. And they're also saying that we are thinking of renting or building new factories somewhere outside of China. Okay, so think about the implications of this and how it will change the way all of us work and how supply chains are going to be affected in the entire world. Now, it says here also that other players in the supply chains will move at least some part of production outside of the usual China, and even customers like Apple, Google, HP, Dell, they need something a bit more resilient than a supply chain in China. So pause and think about, lots of you work for or have businesses that are directly connected to a lot of these companies. So let me show you what is causing this. So the number 2 house is, again, I told you it's about money and resources, and Neptune was here. So Neptune is when things disappear. So when a lot of resources, the resource you need wasn't there. So that's called disappearing resources. Started as early, ramping up from about April this year. So it's been going on all year. And look for the end date, yeah? The end date is not 2022. It's not Jan 2022, it's Jan 2023. So which means that we are only just seeing the beginning of these disappearing resources. So that missing money, possessions, resources, loss of value, but also those of you who have been following other news, which I'll get to later, is about making their dollars intangible. Okay, and this becomes strong in the last part of the upcoming year. Okay, so disappearing resources. And what's more is this pattern here where I call this contractual endings. So just now you saw with the PowerPoint slide that a lot of people who are doing business in China, they're sort of rethinking, do I still want to relocate myself there? So this has already started, and that's why they've started leaving, right? So that means from July onwards, in the last half a year or so, it's been happening. There are what I call rogue behavior in communication and words. And by this, I don't mean that they are going on Twitter and yelling at people, yeah? This rogue behavior can also mean that the agreement that we had, the words that we had said, now we changed the interpretation. And it could come across as irresponsibility. You said you were going to do this and then you never do. So it could be an abrupt death when it comes to certain contracts and agreements. Things that were supposed to be a 10-year contract that suddenly end. Okay, so these things can happen. These contracts can be economical contracts or it can also be political contracts, but I'm not going to go into the politics here. So can this also mean that it's the rise of digital technology? China is already the front leader there. Now, this placement tells you that in this period, now, China has gone even further. Some of you have been following, you know what I'm talking about. So there are 2 strong periods. The first one has already happened just a few months ago. And the next one is coming up at the beginning of 2023. Okay, so that not so soon, following year. Now the thing is, let me show you the scale of what do I mean by they are leaving China. Okay, let me show you the logos of the companies that are leaving. See if you can spot a pattern, yeah? Watch, Nike, Adidas, Puma, Under Armour, Steve Madden, Old Navy, Superdry, Space, NK. This is just some of the companies, yeah? See if you can figure out like what is the common denominator here, okay? So go ask yourself, what industry is this? Okay, pay attention first. Let's look at Apple, Dell, HP, Intel, all these companies are leaving their factories away from China. Okay, then that's another industry. Okay, be careful. I don't mean IT. Look carefully. It's not IT. It's something called electronics. Okay, and the first category are things like apparel, and a lot of these clothes and shoes and consumer goods. And then this section here is a little bit more IT. But you also want to notice that they are not exactly the latest IT companies, if you know what I mean. They are a bit long ago kind of IT companies, just saying. Okay, and then we also have car companies like Hyundai and Kia. So what I just want, there are a couple more that are not in any category. Now the thing is, look carefully here, and sometimes you might be thinking, oh no, is China going to go into a bad place because these guys are leaving? But you see, I've educated you about what the Earth era and what the Air era is. And if you look carefully, almost everything here is part of the Earth era. And even the guys from the second category, don't they make up your fridge, your washing machine, your laptop, your phone, your whatever? And guys, you know that stuff is Earth era stuff. If you look carefully at the technology that's coming, you may not need those things already. Okay, and even when it comes down to the first category about the apparel, I kind of warned people from about 2 years ago that that industry is a bit bye-bye already. Now, if you look at this entire set of logos here, some of the world's biggest companies are here. And if they are exiting China, but you see, some people are also noticing that China is not exactly panicking. Okay, so let me get to that. So on the timeline, you can see that a lot of these patterns are not new. They have been running since this year. And eventually, so a lot of these people are threatening to leave. And then by about June, you see like all these contractual endings will start to happen. And with a large highlight here somewhere in September. And even for all these areas here, some of the headlines that you see around this period is that, oh, China is losing this, China is losing that. That's exactly what you will notice. But the big question I want to ask you is this. How come China is not exactly panicking? Okay, now, if China no longer wants to be the world's factory, who will take its place? And the thing is, what I want you to notice is that if you look at this picture, and you see like China used to be characterized by pictures like this: low-wage, low-income workers, skilled only in manufacturing, and then they will make all the cheap stuff. So the entire world went there to sign all these cheap contracts and try to do things for like low price. Now, the good news is that for China, if you look at young people, millennials, Gen Z, China's got lots of those very smart guys right now. Do they look like the kind of guy who works in factories? Ask yourself, guys. Think, what are all these young Chinese, well-educated, rich kids, what are they doing? Not factory work, they're doing something else. And what this also means is that when all these people with their low, cheap, like low profit kind of contracts are leaving China, what this means is, here's my suggestion, you go and verify with a business consultant whether I'm correct, that China is essentially changing their business model. That they don't want to deal with these guys, right? And they can stay in the air era. China is going, they can stay in the Earth era. China is going to the air era. And what I see here is this combination here, the 3 and 9, is the change of mindset. And what I see very clearly in China's chart is that from 2023 onwards, starting from middle part of the year, we start to see them go full force into what I call unconventional money and values. It will be a digital approach to money and banking. Some of you know what I'm talking about, a lot of new technology coming up, and it will change the domestic, the landscape of China. And it will, and during that time, think about it, 2023 is when a lot of countries are in trouble. There are lots and lots of trouble in 2023, and China will have a very creative solution to solve those international problems. And this will become strong. Look at the dates. Just around the time when a lot of countries, just after a lot of countries are in like major problems. Okay, so yeah, so the pattern will extend all the way until 2024, but it begins in May of 2023. Now the thing is, now as China is moving, I think I think everybody needs to pay a lot more attention and do your own research. Okay, I cannot do everything. I do a lot for you already, but you have to go and look at certain new developments. I'm about to show you that you might want to study a few things. China has introduced something called a social credit. I can't remember which city. I think it's Hangzhou or somewhere. They have a very unconventional approach to money. So you go do your research. Now, another thing that they are going to introduce is something called a digital yuan. The digital yuan is like having cash, but just that it is in your phone. It is a digital thing. Now, in China, it's called digital yuan. In many other countries, they are looking at something very, very big. And I've spoken to lots of people. And this is the interesting part. To prepare for this webinar, I did so extensive research. I spoke to finance people. I spoke to bank people, and I asked them about something that I uncovered on the internet. Now, I consider myself very savvy, I thought I know a lot of things, but I discovered something quite new to me very recently called a CBDC. It's a central bank digital currency. And when I spoke to a lot of people in banks now, it seemed like it shocked me that a lot of people had never heard of it. Okay, so go do your own research. I will not do this, but I thought it was very interesting when I saw this article online that says China declares cryptocurrencies transactions illegal as the digital yuan is nearing. The digital yuan is their version of the CBDC, and I think for a lot of people who are very involved in very exciting new developments, I think you want to think very, very, very clearly about the implications of a lot of these new things that are coming up. And as I tell you, the world will change very rapidly in 2023. And I also showed you right at the very beginning of this webinar that the inventions that will change the world. Remember the overlapping period? It will start in 2025. So if the things that will transform the world, that will change everything in our lifestyles, have not been born yet. They will only be born in 2025, and that is the reason why you want to be extremely careful about going into things that are very new. It may go in a very unpredictable way. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say on the subject. Okay, so but the thing is, what's important here, guys? Stuff is going to get seriously expensive next year. I've been saying for the last 2 years, like, don't need to have so many clothes, yeah? So just saying. Now, here are some of the headlines that I've gotten. These are the ones that have already happened, and which obviously I cannot show you headlines of things that are not going to happen yet, but these things should give you a good idea of what to expect in the next 2 years. First of all, there's a global chip shortage, and it's a nightmare before Christmas. Basically, all your PlayStation, all your like fantastic mobile phones, you want to reconsider because shortage means the price goes up. Now, how many of you actually work in electronics and all these tech industries? Is it true, guys? Is there a massive global chip shortage? Look at that, right? Dell, HP, Lenovo, they say that they will pass on the higher cost to the consumer. And IBM says the chip shortage could last 2 years. And also Xiaomi says that the chip shortage has increased costs and they may pass it on to you, i.e. higher prices. Now, Intel CEO has warned the chip shortage won't end until at least 2023, and the laptop sales are going to get hurt by supply issues. Now, as if it's not enough that a lot of communications is going to get restricted in the upcoming year, but it could mean that you might not be able to get your hand on some of these devices. Okay, so that means, guys, keep thinking about implications. Okay, you come to a webinar like this, I'm telling you this stuff beforehand. Think. Okay, and Apple is going to cut their iPhone production goals. And guys, look at the date of this article. Not very long ago, just last month. Okay, so that means don't need to rush to best denki now, okay? But the thing is, you probably want to go get some laptops and phones while they are still available, okay? And the global chip shortage could affect gadget prices in 2022. Samsung and their folding phone, not really sure how that's going to affect them also. Now, the funny thing here is that if you think about what is really lacking right now is something called the silicon shortage. And I don't want you to just limit yourself to just phones and laptops. I want you to consider that because of the smart home revolution, a lot of people have got little computers in their washing machine. They have computers in their fridge, in their aircon sometimes. And also in your cars, there are lots and lots of things. I'm sure you can come up with an unending list of things that got little computers inside, and they all need that little chip that's inside. So guys, what does this mean? It's all going to get expensive. It's all going to be hard to replace. I think it's possible that you have to be prepared that prices are going to shoot. Right, so the thing is, now the silicon shortage, now I'm going to show you something, right? I found online, this is irrelevant, but I thought it was quite interesting because I was quite curious as to wow, what happened to all the chips here? And I actually found this, the cost of silicon has risen substantially due to the mass production of the COVID-19 vaccines because the material that is required to make the vials is the same as the silicon that is used to manufacture the chip inside the personal computer. So I see the thing is, guys, don't say that something that affects one industry is not my problem, because then something that affects medicine and health is now the problem of the IT industry. Okay, so guys, don't say that things are divided. It is not. We are all interconnected. Okay. Doesn't stop there. Now, not everything is China's fault. Okay, but clothes. We all love our just-in-time fashion, cheap, right? And it says here that your just-in-time fashion will neither be cheap nor in time anymore. Okay, so that clothes are going to become expensive. Next one is going to pain a lot of people. Coffee is also having a coffee shortage, and it could last for 3 years. This one is not China's fault. There are a few coffee-producing countries that have experienced a lot of production delays. So your coffee not going to be there. Okay, another one is, this picture is about the fertilizers. Okay, and the thing about the energy shortage is that it affects not just meat production, meat processing, it also affects fertilizers, and therefore very recently, look, that's November 4th, that's just 2 weeks ago, that at COP26, Yara CEO have said, I'm afraid we are going to have a food crisis. So what this means is that in terms of your expenditures, and I think it's very interesting because as we move from the earth to the air era, one of the things that people have to let go of is this attachment to things. The air era is very intangible in many ways. And I know we've all been brought up in this materialistic environment where if you're successful means you have lots of stuff, right? And the thing is, it's quite hard to own stuff when you can't buy it. Okay, so the thing is, I think people you want to be very prepared, but it's not going to happen all at one go. But I think if people who have kids, people who have families, you lead teams, I think it's time to start planning for how can you do a lot of things with very little resources. And the good news is that it forces people to be more innovative. It forces a lot of people who are in manufacturing to be a lot more productive.
Now, when I first talked about these shortages during the live webinar, it garnered a lot of responses. People were very worried about, oh my God, are we going to not have laptops? Are we going to starve to death? And I think what's important is for everyone to sort of stay grounded and realize that shortages doesn't necessarily mean that it's a complete you don't get stuff. I think what's more important, if we're going to rise up and sort of step away from the surface problem, I think this change from the earth era to air era is also challenging the way in which we have a relationship with the things that we buy and the things that we use, especially as the earth era is so connected with a culture of consumption. That means we just need to buy lots and lots of stuff, a new fridge every few years. And I think with technology, we're also starting to sort of question, do your products need to go obsolete so quickly? Do you really need 1 million of these dresses to wear when you don't even go out that much anymore? So this is some of the questions that we want to think about with our lifestyle. And I think especially for the countries, that if you think you live in a country that's going to be hit harder by these shortages, one of the advantages of knowing about these things beforehand in a forecast like this is to work with teams, get people up to start thinking about solutions, about, let's just say, if the forecast is correct, what are some of the actions that we can take along the way to make sure that life goes on, even if our access to the usual products and services isn't going to be as easy as it's been in the past. Alright, so I'm going to quickly introduce my next video because we're coming to the end of the series of 9, and the next one, which is number 8 in the series, is going to talk about Singapore. So keep watching.